Good afternoon, children. Last time we had finished with our topic on pollination of lesson 2, where we discussed the various types of pollination, the contrivances, adaptations to ensure cross pollination, agents of pollination, various characteristics of flowers pollinated by wind, water, insect, birds, snails, bats, etc. Today we are going to start with a fresh topic about fertilization. So fertilization is not a new word, children. What is the meaning? The term fertilization means fusion of compatible. Compatible means the right type of male and female gametes, right? We have also a term to introduce called siphonogamy, right? Siphon means a tube. Since the fertilization in seed plants is brought by a pollen tube, it is also called as siphonogamy. So, the term fertilization can be alternatively used as siphonogamy, right? Because this is being brought by a pollen tube in seed plants. So, this is what the seedless plants, it won't be effective, but the seed plants, it will be also called as siphonogamy, right? Another term to introduce for today, obturator tissue. OBTUATOR. Obturator tissue is a tissue found in the ovary of the flower which guides the pollen tube to the embryo sac, right? So three terms, children: fertilization, then siphonogamy because it is through the pollen tube. The term siphon itself means a tube-like structure, and obturator tissue, which means a tissue in the ovary to guide the pollen tube to embryo sac. To move further, the term fertilization we have to study under the sequence of events under two broad headings. In a flower, we'll talk about germination of pollen grain on the stigma, the first part, and passage of pollen tube through the style. So if you look at this diagram, children, first, see, in a stigma which is sticky and going to secrete various nutrients, water, etc. would be present. Pollen from various agencies, they come and sit over here or land over here, and then only the compatible, how we discussed last time, will start germinating, right? Now, how do the pollen they start to germinate? The first thing is the compatible or the right type will absorb water and nutrients from the stigma and swell up. Like mango will germinate on mango. This is what we mean by compatibility. The right type, and the first thing is they will absorb the water and nutrients and they will swell up. Second thing what will happen is the swollen tube cell in the pollen grain grows out producing a pollen tube. So this swollen tube cell will grow out producing a pollen tube. Alright. So these are the two events that take place in the first part of fertilization. Second, before this proceeds further, the passage of pollen tube has to make its way through the style. Now, style could be of varied forms. It could be solid or hollow, or it could be semi-solid. Solid is sometimes generally seen. Hollow is seen in monocots, and semi-solid is seen in the family like Cactaceae. Now, the passage is created by chemotropism, that is along the concentration gradient. This passage which the pollen tube is making through the style is made along a concentration gradient or the increasing concentration of sugar complex. Look at this: calcium, boron, inositol. This is the sugar complex with the increasing concentration, how it keeps shifting the passage till it reaches the micropyle. The pollen tube now has made its way, suppose, till the embryo sac. This is the final destination. And now how should it enter? This will enter through one of the synergid cells. I'll show you a diagram of your textbook. Look at this diagram, children. This diagram tells you how the pollen tube has come. It is bringing the tube cell at the tip, and the vegetative nucleus has already divided into, the generative nucleus has divided into two male gametes. So the pollen tube, it's entering into the synergid first, through the synergid. Look at this. And then It is liberating the two male gametes. See the next diagram. One of the male gamete, this black structure, is entering the egg cell or the fusion about to take with egg nucleus, and the other would be shifted towards the secondary nucleus, which is formed by the fusion of two polar nuclei. So this is the sequence of events that has taken place into the passage of pollen tube through the style. Now ultimately what happens? The generative nucleus, how last time we discussed, it is called so because it will produce or generate two male gametes. The two male gametes formed would be large nuclei and thin cytoplasm. Ultimately, what will happen with the tube nucleus? Because it has made its journey from the top till the micropyle, it will now degenerate because its role is over. And what about the synergids? These side cells also will be degenerated because the role was obviously finally to let the pollen tube enter through them. You remember the filiform apparatus, how we discussed last time? So it's done its job, and again they will also degenerate. The next is, how should the pollen tube enter the ovary? Look at this diagram, children. There are three ways or routes of entry. Look at this. The pollen tube enters the ovule through three routes which are possible. This is route 1, called as porogamy. This is route 2. Porogamy means pollen tube entering through the micropyle. You can see this is entering through the micropyle, bringing the male gametes, and this is the most commonly seen method. The second method is just the reverse, not from micropyle but from the opposite end here. See, it is entering through the chalazal end, and this is seen in plants like Betula, Casuarina and Juglans regia. I have given you in the notes just now. And the third and the only possible route is through the integuments. See this, the two integuments, outer and inner, and it is entering through the integument. So this will be called as mesogamy, and this is seen in plants like Cucurbita or let's say Populus, etc. So three routes, as we said: porogamy, the entry to the ovule through the micropyle; chalazogamy, enters through the chalaza; and mesogamy, it enters through the integument. Then coming next to further things, two processes which will be seen in angiosperms in fertilization. Now imagine the two male gametes have entered here. So what is going to happen further? This is what you have to imagine. Something like this will happen, children. This is the embryo sac, and two male gametes from outside they have come, of the same receptacle variety, of the same species, right? So what will happen is, one of the male gamete targets this egg cell. I have shown it by a blue color. One male gamete targets this egg cell, whereas the other male gamete targets the secondary nucleus. Now this secondary nucleus has been made by the fusion of two polar nuclei, right, which we have discussed it last time already. Now what happens? The fusion of male gamete with the egg cell is called syngamy, right? And the fusion of the second male gamete with secondary nucleus is called triple fusion. Why triple fusion? Because this bigger secondary nucleus is formed of two polar nuclei. So how many nuclei are fusing? Originally two of this and one. So because it is the fusion of three nuclei, it is called triple fusion, and this is called as the syngamy, right? So these are two broad processes in angiosperms. Syngamy, which is the fusion of male gamete with egg cell. The resulting cell or the zygote would be 2N or diploid, right? And the triple fusion leads to the production of a triploid nucleus called primary endosperm nucleus. So go through the terms very carefully, children. That is why I am jotting down everything and giving you one by one in writing. Coming to a new word now, not so really new because we have done it many times: double fertilization. First, who discovered this? It was done by Navaschin in 1898 in Fritillaria and Lilium. By definition, this is the same thing that we'll define into a systematic pattern. This is one fusion or one fertilization. This is the other. So you can see that fusion of one male gamete with the egg to form zygote here, and the other with the second male gamete to form a triploid nucleus. This fusion will be called as or this fertilization would be called double fertilization 1 and 2. Alright. So what is the equational view here? See, the same thing I am explaining in an equation. One male gamete with egg cell, which we call as syngamy. The resultant product was, it is giving 2N because 2 nuclei are fusing, and this will form in future the embryo or the baby plant. What is an embryo? It is the plumule and the radicle. Plumule, the delicate leaf-like structures which will form future shoot, and radicle, the structure which will form the future root. Alright, the second male gamete is fusing with the secondary nucleus, and the fusion called as triple fusion. The product would be a triploid or 3N primary endosperm, and this will form the future endosperm for nourishment of embryo. Alright, now coming to the post-fertilization structures and events. In this, we'll broadly divide our heading into two parts that we call as formation of endosperm and formation of embryo, that is embryogeny. Right? The first part, formation of endosperm, we'll divide under three side headings: formation of endosperm nucleus, then development of endosperm, and the fate of endosperm. Under this, formation of endosperm, right? Now this primary endosperm nucleus, that is whatever is formed as a triploid cell over here, the product of this fusion, that is the triple fusion, what is going to form as the primary endosperm nucleus will be the one that starts dividing repeatedly to form the endosperm tissue. The endosperm receives the food supply from nucellus. Nucellus was the nutritive tissue, right? And further what happens, it will ultimately perish away, giving a new structure, right? Look at this. We are introducing another new word called as perisperm. The endosperm receives food supply from nucellus, which ultimately perishes and remain in the form of thin layer outside the endosperm called perisperm. Right, children? So this you have to learn again. So ultimately, this nucleus has now formed into the endosperm nucleus, ultimately has developed into the nutritive endosperm. Now, how should it develop? It has three ways of development: the free nucleotide, cellular, and helobial. First, look at this diagram. These are the three types of endosperms. Concentrate on the diagram and I'll explain. The first is the most common type. It is called as the free nucleotide, right? And what is very carefully, if you can see over here, the same endosperm nucleus, by repeated divisions, it has formed many nuclei which have arranged themselves into the peripheral layers, right? Later on, the cell wall leads to the formation of this type of cellular endosperm. Later on, this will, when the cell wall would be laid down, so this will be gradually forming the cellular. So once again, how to understand this? This endosperm nucleus, what is formed here, repeatedly is going to divide into number of free nuclei, and all the nuclei would be shifted to the periphery. Because the cell wall has not yet laid down, we call it as the free nucleotype or the nucleotype. Later on, when the cell wall would be laid down, you'll call it as the cellular type. Now this one can be seen and understood as an example of the coconut water. When the coconut water we drink from a tender coconut, that's the free nucleotype. So this is what you can imagine, that the nutritive water is having many free nuclei, thousands of nuclei, and the surrounding white kernel is the cellular endosperm, which is rich in sugar, minerals, etc. Alright, coming to the cellular type. So where it is seen in plants like Peperomia, Willarsia and Drimys. I have given you in the notes here. So cellular type seen in Peperomia, Willarsia and Drimys. And what is here special? Here you have to understand that the same primary endosperm nucleus which was dividing into nuclei here, the cell wall or the cell has been now completed by various lay down of the wall. Alright, then moving further to the last one, that is a helobial type. This is seen in plants like Vallisneria, Eremurus and Limnophyton. In this type, children, what we call as helobial type, this is an intermediate between the previous two. Like this was free nuclei, but here there was the formation of cells, right? Because the wall formation was laid down. We have seen it. See clearly. But here what is special is that in this case there is an intermediate partition between the two sides. You can see the wall is laid or developed between the nuclei as the first division of endosperm, and a large number of free nuclei are seen in the upper chamber. See how many are there, and here the lesser number. So what happens? The lower chamber forms few nuclei or sometimes may not divide at all further, right? So this is what you can see, many nuclei here in the helobial and lesser into the partition wall that is laid down, and this is the intermediate between the other two. Alright, so that was the journey of the development of endosperm with the examples. Coming to the fate of endosperm. Fate means what is going to happen further with this endosperm. Endosperm, children, provides nourishment, right? And there will be two choices of the fate or the future, right? On the basis of whether endosperm is present, the seeds present in future will be called as endospermic or albuminous, like castor, coconut, wheat and maize. Or whether if they are absent, like if endosperm is absent or not properly being seen, then who's going to store the food? Yes, the cotyledons. So that will be called as a non-endospermic seed, right? Or example like gram, bean, almond, etc. So this will be non-endospermic, also called as X-albuminous. We also call it as X-albuminous seed, right? Then if we talk about the differences between them, the endospermic or albuminous seeds and the non-endospermic or X-albuminous. Here endosperm is seen as a permanent structure, but here endosperm disappears completely. Food stored in endosperm, whereas here the food is stored in cotyledons, right, which is formed as a we can say functional tissue for food storage, right? So this becomes fleshy by absorbing food from the nucellus and the endosperm. I hope you're understanding, children. Now we have our next topic. We are starting with the formation of embryo, or also called as embryogeny or embryogenesis. We'll have this under two headings: dicot embryogeny and monocot embryogeny. Today we are only starting with dicot, just in case that you should not get confused. This is a very systematic structure of a dicot embryogeny. In your book, children, it's been explained like this, but for the basis of your stepwise understanding, I've done it in a colored way so that you understand very clearly. Now let us see. This is step 1. See how we are proceeding. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H and I. So these are so many steps of the dicot embryogeny. What is a dicot embryo? It looks like this. This is the dicot embryo or a baby plant, right? And it has the plumule, which is going to form the future shoot. It has the radicle, which is forming the future root, etc. Right? Then there is an imaginary axis here called as the embryonal axis, right? So how is this structure formed? You're going to study. Let us see. We are starting with step 1 as the zygote. How was zygote formed, children? The zygote was formed here. The fusion of the male gamete during fertilization with the egg cell formed the zygote. Here you saw it. Now you're moving further with this zygote nucleus, and what is happening further. Now this zygote nucleus, first thing is that it elongates. See, stepwise. This is going to elongate, and a transverse wall is going to divide it into two cells, or we can say unequal cells. The upper one is larger, right, and it is called as suspensor cell or a basal cell, right? And the one towards the lower side, if we see this upper side as the micropylar end, then the opposite side is the antipodal end, right? So this lower small cell, children, will be called as the embryonal cell. Now let us see what is further going to happen. Look at this yellow cell. repeated divisions of the suspensor cell will divide into a series of 7 to 8 cells, and this will ultimately, see, from 1 it became divided further, and now ultimately 7 to 8 cells structure we call as suspensor. Alright, so this, the last one towards the micropylar end, towards this side, will become a swollen structure, what we call as haustorium, right, or haustorial cell, and the function of this is to absorb food for the growing embryo. Alright, then the last cell, that was embryonal cell, here by the first division of zygote, it will divide thrice, 3 divisions, and ultimately form an 8 cell structure, what you call as an octant or embryonal mass. See, embryonal cell will divide thrice. First will be 1 into 2, 2 into 4, and now into 8. So this 8 cell structure will be called as an octant stage or an embryonal mass. Right? I hope you are understanding till here, children. Let's revise till here. Till this 5 step, let us revise once again. First I told you zygotic nucleus, it elongates and then divides by a transverse wall into 2 cells. The micropylar side, there is a bigger cell called as the suspensor cell or basal cell, and the antipodal side is the embryonal cell. This yellow cell divides repeatedly till it forms a 7 to 8 cell structure called as suspensor, and the last of this towards the micropylar end elongates and becomes for food absorption called as haustorial cell, whereas this later cell or the smaller cell called embryonal cell divides thrice. 1 divides into 2, 2 into 4, and then finally into 8 called as octant stage or the embryonal mass, because this blue structure, the rounded ball like structure, in future will form the embryo, right? And these structures will be forming many varieties which I will show you just now. Alright, moving further, let us see here this 7 to 8 cell structure called as suspensor. What is the function of this suspensor, children? It will push the developing embryo, that is this, deep inside the developing endosperm. So suspensor, the only role is to push it inside, and later on it will degenerate. See how it will later on degenerate, right? And then one more term here to learn. The last of this yellow structure, the last cell towards the embryo, is called as hypophysis. Once again, what is hypophysis? Is the last cell of this axis or the yellow cell structure, and here this is towards the embryonal end. So this is hypophysis, or the last cell of suspensor, which gives rise to radicle and the root cap later on. Alright, now moving now from here, the 8 cell octant structure divides periclinally. I have already introduced you here, children. Earlier also we have talked. There are 2 terms, periclinal, which means parallel division to the surface of an organ or part, and anticlinal means a division which is towards the let's say right angle, right? So here once again, starting from here, the 8 cell octant divides periclinally to form an outer layer, this green structure called as dermatogen, right? This dermatogen is also called as protoderm. The inner cell, that is the inner cells or the protodermal cells, they will divide by anticlinal. Anticlinal means they will be dividing by 90-degree angle, right, or right angle, and then differentiate into a tissue what we call as plerome or procambium, right? Plerome or procambium I have shown by blue color, right? And then what further happens would be a ground tissue would be formed, which will be called as periblem. So ultimately, children, there are 3 forms of tissues formed. Once again, the outermost called as dermatogen, also called protoderm. Then these inner cells, they divided to form a procambium, the blue colored, also called plerome, and the ground tissue or the ground meristem called as periblem, right? Now, what is the fate of these? Why these are being formed separately? Let us see. This dermatogen, the green color, will form epidermis in future, right? Then procambium, that is this blue colored tissue, will form the vascular strand, the xylem and phloem, or what you call as the stele. Then this ground tissue, this orange structure, will later on form the pith and cortex of the plant body. Then coming to two more regions called as epibasal cells and hypobasal cells. See, the region of this embryo which is towards the hypophysis. See this, hypophysis was the last cell. So the one that is towards the hypophysis is called the hypobasal region, and the one that is away or the terminal region is called epibasal. So this hypobasal region forms the hypocotyle. Hypocotyle and epibasal region forms the two cotyledons and plumule. Right. Ultimately, what happens is that a heart-shaped embryo, you can see, or proembryo, is later on formed. First is a globular structure we can see with radial symmetry of the cotyledon. That is, structure from this side now assumes this shape, heart shape. Suspensor is there, very much clearly seen, and the haustoria is also seen. But later on, this is our second last step, children, you can see that the suspensor starts disintegrating. Right? The further divisions, by repeated divisions, what further happens is the embryonal cells form a globular tissue with the radial symmetry, and this is, as I told you, is called as a proembryo. Then later on, with the development of the radicle and plumule, this is the radicle, you can see this, the red colored layer, and the plumule is this side, this region, which will form the future shoot. With these differentiation, the two cotyledons, they are also seen in the heart-shaped embryo, and the group of cells, they are forming plumule, radicle and cotyledons very clearly. The suspensor finally disintegrates. Finally, is the last stage to discuss is a dicot embryo that is formed. Something that I told you looks like this, right? The same thing, if I show it here, will be structured like this, with the haustorium now looking inverted here and the cotyledons like this. So fully mature dicot structure has an embryonal axis as an imaginary axis, children, you have to imagine, right, axis, and then the region that is between the plumule and the cotyledon point is called epicotyle, and the region or imaginary region between the point of cotyledon attachment and the radicle, it is called as the hypocotyle. So the plumule gives rise to the shoot and the radicle gives rise to the root. And this entire embryogeny, children, for a dicot explanation, dicot embryogeny has been given or explained in a plant what we call Capsula bursa pastoris. It's a typical example of a dicot plant. This plant is also called as the shepherd's purse. It is of the family Brassicaceae, and why it is called shepherd's purse? Because its flat triangular fruits are purse shaped. The seeds are used to attract and kill nematodes or the worms, which is usually seen as a means to locally enrich the soil, right? And it's a mustard family member, usually seen as a common member on cultivated ground, right? So let's see what on this page we have to complete for today, children. Finally, to end up for today, before that, 3 more terms to introduce for the dicot embryogeny, children. Formation of embryo from zygote, this whole thing what we have seen, the zygote formed the entire embryo, is called embryogeny. Meroblastic development means that the embryo develops only from a part of zygote. That is, the whole zygote was not used for making of embryo, but a portion of it, so it's called meroblastic. It's also called as endoscopic because the embryo develops towards the interior due to this suspensor. I told you already, the suspensor had shifted it deep inside the endosperm, so therefore it is developed internally and called as endoscopic. Proembryo is globular, or this structure which I told you is the structure which is with radial symmetry. This is called as proembryo, right? And anticlinal and periclinal divisions we've already understood. Peri-PP, remember, parallel to the surface, and anticlinal means at the right angle to the surface. So this is what we have done for today, children. We have finished with the fertilization, definition of siphonogamy, obturator tissue, the events of events of fertilization process, that is germination of pollen grain, passage of pollen tube, 3 routes of entry of pollen tube into ovule. This is not ovary but ovule. that is porogamy, chalazogamy and mesogamy. Then syngamy, triple fusion, double fertilization and post-fertilization changes, where we discussed about the development of endosperm, free nuclear, cellular and helobial. This is what we have done today with the diagrams. And then the formation of embryo. As I told you, today we will be discussing only the dicot embryogeny. Monocot we will be discussing tomorrow. We have also seen the differences between endospermic and non-endospermic seeds and various terms that I have introduced, like meroblastic, endoscopic, proembryo, periclinal, anticlinal, and the example of this entire layout into Capsula bursa pastoris. With that, I will be stopping, children, and the homework for today, please write down. You will first thing is that you will draw the structure of this dicot embryo and label it well, children, right? And next time, before that, try to give a reading to this monocot embryogeny. It's very small, one paragraph over here and these diagrams. But what next time is that we'll do a comparison. So before we have to start, it's good that you will please read it if possible. Thank you so much, and please write down these notes in your copies and keep revising. Thank you.